Welcome to the S.E.M podcast.
Thank
Today
you.
we're joined by Doug Pullen. It's me, Jack Bryce, and Zack Hewlett back as your co-hosts. Doug's joined us all the way from the British Isles. So it's we were talking temperatures, and he says it's really hot there, Zack. It's like 81 degrees.
Oh, it's smoking. My word.
Unbearable.
My watch says it's 88 here, so I mean, we're not dying yet.
Yeah. They don't have AC though.
Yeah, we don't know what to do when it gets this hot.
What part of England are you in now, Doug?
So I'm about an hour north of where I grew up. So we live in Lichfield, which is just north of Birmingham, and I grew up just south of Birmingham. So
okay,
in England, that's a pretty far move, right? That's basically the other side of the country.
Yeah,
it's very true.
I had a young man in my ward got his mission call, and he's like, "I'm going to Birmingham," and I got really excited. He said, "Birmingham, Alabama." I was like, oh, give me a break, man. All right.
The city council here in Birmingham used a photo of Birmingham, Alabama on one of their promotional leaflets by accident, and they quite rightly got slagged off for it.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty rookie mistake.
Yeah, rookie mistake.
It is.
All right, so we'll get started with the timeline headed into the mission, then we'll skip over and we'll catch up with you and what you've been up to since and recently, and then we'll go back and reminisce about the mission a little bit. So if you want to start us out with how you ended up in Scotland.
So I was a convert to the church. I was a semi-convert to the church, right? So I kind of grown up in the church. My dad wasn't a member, so I joined the church about a year before I arrived in Scotland. Actually, properly got baptised, and to save some money for my mission, I was working at the church offices in Solihull, which is where we lived. So that's when they had the general authorities and a whole load of the sort of the European administration operating out of. And so I put my papers in, and I actually got my mission call delivered to my desk while I was working at the church offices. So I got back from lunch one day, and there's this big A4 envelope on my desk. So there was I didn't go home, didn't wait for my family or anything like that. I just literally opened it up on my desk while I was eating a sandwich, I think. And I'd learned languages at school. So I'd learned Spanish, French, and Italian to all a fairly decent standard. Done all my exams, got top marks in these languages. So when you fill out your mission papers and they ask you, do you speak any other languages? I'd put French, Spanish, Italian in massive capital letters. I'd purposely put in a black and white photo of me because I thought the second they see I'm ginger, they're going to send me to Scotland or Ireland. So I'm not having any of that. So purposely put in a black and white photo. I was trying all the tricks in the book. Do you have any, I think one of the questions on there was, where are your parents from? So my mom's great-great-great-grandparents emigrated to New Zealand, and they lived there for a few generations. So I was right. My family history, New Zealand, big letters. Yeah, anyway, I got Scotland. It's really funny. So listening to somebody American that talks about going to Scotland, it's this huge, just wow, you're going back to the land of our forefathers, the Edinburgh Mission. You are a lucky guy. But for anyone from Birmingham going to Scotland, it's a little bit deflating.
Yeah. Conway told us it'd be like getting called to Utah.
Yeah, exactly that. So I had friends who went to Portugal, Australia, Greece, all these what you typically think of as really, or UK. Someone from the UK would think is a brilliant place to go. I got to Scotland. I called my mum up and told her that I'd been called to Scotland, and her words, and this is a direct quote, were, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Oh, jeez.
But I knew that was I was good with it, right? That lasted about an hour of being deflated, and then I was psyched up. I was good to go. And when I left, I think I got the call in probably the March or April. Probably about March, and then arrived into the MTC on the 9th of June 2004.
All right.
Nice.
Good deal.
One very short trip up the M6 motorway to the Preston MTC.
Yeah. So did your parents drop you off up there?
They did, yeah. So my mum, my dad, I think my sister might have even come up there, and my great aunt. It was good. So then they put you in this room, and I think you have like a mini church service there, and then parents and everyone go out one room or out one door, and we went out the other. It's good. It's a good experience.
Interesting.
All right. So then you went back home in what, 2006, summer 2006.
2006. That's it. So
and, catch us up from there.
So back home on, I think it might have just been short of 2 years. So I think it was probably the 6th of June 2006. Back home, got married on the 11th of November that year to
wow.
to my wife, who I think I'd met once before. So yeah, it's pretty quick, proper Mormon wedding. Getting done quick. So I was really good friends with her younger sister. Her older brother was my young men's president when I was growing up in youth. So I knew the family really, really well, but just didn't know her at all, really. She'd lived away for a number of years and come back. And that was it. So we started dating in the summer, and we were married by the 11th of November that year, which is really good for me because the 11th of November, 11/11, it's Remembrance Day in the UK and in a number of Commonwealth countries across the world. So I never have an excuse to forget our wedding anniversary. It is literally Remembrance Day.
That's too funny.
That's great.
Which is good. So Natasha already had 2 children when we married, so I inherited 2 fantastic children, Leighton and Kiana, who are now 24 and 19. So Leighton has been on a mission, went to the Lyon, France mission, and is now married with a 2-year-old child. So I am officially Grandad Doug and getting called Doug.
Oh my.
Kiana has just started university, so she's doing a law degree here in the UK. And then we've got 3 children between us. So we've got a Maya who's 14, we've got Malachi who's 13, and we've got Heba who's 10. And it is a wonderful, beautiful handful and nightmare. Kids are hard, right? We love them a bit.
They can be challenging.
They make our lives full, but flipping heck, they're hard.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Oh man.
So that's family. Work-wise, so Natasha and I, we ran a business together for about 10 years, which we then sold when I was about 28, 29. I then went off and qualified as a barrister. So in the US, I think it's like an attorney. So what you call it? An attorney?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Qualified as a barrister. Decided that I really didn't like that, and then ended up working for a software company, selling software into the financial services industry, and still do the same job, but for a different company, for a company that's now based out of Chicago. So we have our annual meetings in Florida, which is fantastic. We have our sales incentives in Mexico, and we have our user conference in Tennessee. So there's plenty of stateside travel in the job, which is brilliant. It's really good.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, go on.
I was going to say Tennessee must be a little bit of an outside of a world experience for you.
Nashville, Tennessee.
some good barbecue and some country music. There you go.
Yeah,
That's America.
Despite being 37, I still laugh every time at the venue because it's held at the Gaylord Resort, which my inner child laughs at every single time. haven't matured one single bit.
Oh, jeez.
And then outside of that, I'm also I'm an elected politician. I'm the leader of our council. So we've got 100,000 people or so in the area, and I'm their elected leader, which adds another dimension to everything we do.
Yeah, wow,
that's amazing.
Good fun.
So we also want to hear. Recently, you took a trip, right, to help out with the conflict in Ukraine. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I went out. Been out a couple of times. Went out in March the first time. I just felt really helpless. Right, so you see everything that's happening. You see it happening on your, for I suppose for Europeans, quite literally on our borders, so close. You saw the news segments where literally 6 or 8 hours of queues of people turning up with suitcases and trolleys full of what possessions they can take with them, and then queuing up on the border. So my initial thought was, well, let's get a couple of vans loaded with supplies and get over to the border and drive it through Europe. And actually, after doing a bit more research about it, actually, that's not what they needed. They didn't need clothes. They didn't need things there. It's a fairly affluent country in and of its own right. And equally, if you load up a van of supplies on a Monday, you don't get there till the Wednesday or Thursday. There are a whole load of problems caused by Brexit with getting over from the UK into Europe anyway, with additional paperwork. So I thought, no, I'll just fly over there, raise some cash, and I'll buy whatever whatever they need. I'll get that in Poland. So I booked a cheap Ryanair flight over from Birmingham to Krakow, hired a car, drove from Krakow to the border at a place called Przemyśl, and kind of turned up with a high-vis. I went, right, what do you need me to do? And it was just a really interesting experience. So I didn't do it through any sort of formal organisation or anything like that, or any grouping. Just turned up, and you know what? I think and maybe we can get back to this later, but the mission experience prepares you for a lot of that. So I had a lot of people asking me when I got home, I don't understand, how did you do that? You must have gone through an organisation, you must have gone through a group. How did you know what to do? How did you know who to speak to? How did you know what people needed? And the reality is, I didn't have a clue, but I went out there and turned up and switched on to what people need and being able to talk to people. Those are all sort of core life skills that 2 years being thrown into Scotland teaches you very, very quickly. I suppose I was able to use those skills in a slightly different way, in a really different location 15 years later. But it was, so I did it the first time and then went back again a few weeks later, raised a bit more cash from people back at home and got out there and did what I can on the Polish side of the border. So my wife had banned me from stepping foot into Ukraine, and I listened. I was offered the opportunity by mostly Americans, to be honest with you, Americans and Canadians, just going over the border saying, "Come on, Doug, we're going in tonight. We've got a tent and we've got some spare body armor you can use." And
oh my gosh.
Well, you know what? Like, you're all ex-military, and I'm just going to stop here. I'll do what I can in my own small corner of the world.
Wow,
that's incredible! Holy cow!
And I actually so a couple of funny stories about that. So obviously Andrei Zinkowski still lives in Kharkov, and he's doing an amazing work out there in terms of what he's doing to raise money and to feed the people that live close to him. So I had several conversations with Elder Zinkowski while I was over there, using him as a translator or asking him specific questions about what was needed, etc. But the one occasion I turned up at Przemyśl train station, which is right on the border. So that's like the first train station that people arrive in from Kiev. And there were a group of women stood there, and I was literally just had a sign saying, free transport, whoever needs it, come talk to me. And I eventually started speaking to this group, and we started getting in the car. And I said, okay, where are you going? I need a very specific address. And she showed me her phone, and she said, oh, this is the address. And it was all in English. I was like, oh, brilliant, this is fantastic, all in English. Gave me an address. And then at the end, it was like, said, yeah, this is the address. It's the I think it was it the Krakow? Yeah, it must have been the Krakow branch. I was thinking the Krakow branch, this sounds a bit odd. And then it carried on the message, and it said, anyway, if you need to speak to Elder Foot or Elder Smith or whatever, just give us a call. I was like, I said, are you more? Obviously, they didn't speak English, so I was, are you Mormon? And I said, yes. And so members of the church. Wow. And they said, her mom, so when I'd been standing in the train station, her mom had said to her, and pointed at me, is he with your church? Because she wasn't a member. He's with your church. And the daughter said, no, don't be stupid. No, why would anyone from the church be here? Anyway.
That's amazing.
Funny story. Yes. I ended up taking them to the branch meeting house in, I can't remember if it was Krakow or Warsaw, actually, but one of the two. It was Krakow, yeah. And they had a whole system set up there with a whole load of service missionaries and getting members of the church out of Ukraine and then on to onward destinations. So that was a really, really interesting. I also made my Sky News. You have Sky News in the US?
No.
Like Fox News, right? Like
yeah.
Right-wing news, right? So made my Sky News debut. In the background of a report from Przemyśl train station, I was. It just happened to be at the time that I was getting interviewed by 4 big burly policemen who wanted to know exactly what I was doing, where I was going, where I was taking these women. So, this is not how I wanted to make my debut on a news station. Getting interviewed about people trafficking in Poland.
Oh my word! Yeah, goodness.
All right. Well, that's pretty unique and fantastic. Really good stuff.
Yeah, a meaningful, memorable experience, definitely.
Do you have any plans to do more of those types of efforts?
So my wife banned me from going back there again.
Okay. I can understand that. Just the last thing she wants is you to keep going until you don't come back.
Yeah. So I think the reality is that at some point war will end there, and at that point Ukraine will need a lot of rebuilding efforts, right. a lot of effort. So Natasha doesn't know this yet, but I will be spending some time out there once war is over, or certainly that it's contained within the sort of the eastern parts of Ukraine, to get back into the places like Lviv, Kharkov. All those sorts of places that are really going to need those rebuilding efforts done. It's going to be decades of rebuilding. And so I'm still supporting a charity out there called HARP, and they're just working into Lviv is western Ukraine. It's right on the border, but there's a lot of sort of internally displaced people there. So a lot of people from the sort of the war-torn areas have ended up in Lviv, which is perfectly safe, really well organised, but they've just had a sudden influx of 20,000 refugees, and it's only a small city, so they're doing a lot of work in those sorts of areas at the moment, where it's not that people are fleeing the country, but they need help in what is currently a safe place, but they do still need that help there.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so we'll go back now. You can start at the MTC or when you got to Scotland, but walk us through, where you're at, who you served with, and we'll get going from there.
Brilliant. Let's start the MTC, because the MTC was an interesting experience, wasn't it? So I think so I've been listening to a few of your podcasts, and it seems people did various different times in the MTC. So I think I was there for 3 weeks, I think. But I know some people said they did 12 days or 2 weeks or something else. I'm pretty sure we were there for 3 weeks. And we got there at a time when we were still being taught out of the Purple Dragon, so the big purple old school book. And we had some pamphlets as well. And we were kind of in that phase where they were saying, well, you need to learn it off by heart, but equally don't learn it off by heart and you can use your own words. So I think we're kind of in that middle bit between the Purple Dragon. I can't even remember what that book was called.
The Missionary Guide.
There you go, the Missionary Guide.
Called.
That one. The very imaginative title. I just remember the MDC just being just good fun, right? Like meeting a whole load of people from just such a wildly different background. Because I'd only been in the church a really short amount of time, I suppose a lot of it was really foreign to me, like foreign in the sense that I didn't understand what people were doing and what they were talking about half the time. And people talking about, oh, well, I want to be AP. And I was thinking, what the heck's an AP? Like, what's a zone? What's a ZL? Like, what is this? I did not understand how missions worked at all. And in hindsight, I actually think that was probably a positive thing. I think that actually helped me in my mission, not even thinking about those things ahead of a mission. So I served there with Elder Brent Littlefield, who was a sort of a large in stature, very, very pleasant, down-to-earth, good guy. That was just good fun. I remember getting a massive bang on my head because I'd slid down the banister on like the third day there and fallen off the end and hit my head off the window and ended up having, so all the photos of me in the MTC, I've just got this whacking great red, like raised egg coming out of my forehead.
Jeez.
That's good. Yeah, fun. The MTC was good. So then we got chucked on the train at Preston, straight up to Edinburgh. Remember, so Elder Archambault was, if you remember, what was Archambault's first name? I want to say Kyle, but I may have made that up. Elder Archambault was attempting to teach someone a lesson on the train on the way up to Edinburgh, and the guy was just so uninterested. It was hilarious, but he gave him the time, which was good of him. And I remember we got picked up by Elder Nelson and Elder Bhutan. So you had Elder Bhutan on the other day, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we got picked up by them, got given the most ridiculous tour of Edinburgh ever, where they just make up a whole load of junk about Edinburgh and see how long it takes people to actually work out they were just lying to you the entire time. I think it took their entire mission to work out.
Like historical facts or what?
Just so, did you not get this as well? So when we arrived, we had we did like a tour of Edinburgh, and it's like, see that building over there? That's where the Scotland Temple is going to be built. The land's already been consecrated, but it's coming forward in the next few months. I can't remember what else it was said, but just remember, it was just this absolute nonsense tour where they just totally make stuff up for the whole 45 minutes.
A load of rubbish for you new.
Yeah, a load of rubbish for everyone to hold on to.
I didn't get that.
I don't remember that either. So
yeah, I thought it was some S.E.M tradition that was handed down through the generations, but clearly Elder Bhutan and Elder Nelson were just having a good afternoon out.
Yes. Did you give that tour to the new missionaries who came in under your?
Yeah, we absolutely did.
Yeah. Okay, so
it's a tradition indeed.
It was a tradition, and then obviously the mission got sensible, I think, after we left, and they stopped it.
Jeez.
So my first companion, Elder Dan Drummond, who was from Wales. I think Elder President Vriens just liked playing tricks on sort of putting joke companionships together. So he put the two ginger elders together just because he thought it'd be really funny to. If there's one missionary going to get abuse off the streets, he's going to be ginger. Let's put two of them together and they can get double the amount of abuse. So we went to Aberdeen, which is where Dan Drummond was serving. And that was, how long was it? I was with Elder Drummond for 3 months. So two moves periods. It was hard. It was absolutely horrendous. We had no investigators, no teaching pool. We literally spent every single day chapping. We'd go home for lunch, then we'd go back out again for another 3 or 4 hours, then go back for dinner, then go back out again in the evening. And it was a challenge. And if Elder Drummond listens to this, he should come on and defend himself on this, right? But some of the door approaches, they were flipping awful. It was like, hi, we're from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We've got a message about the Book of Mormon. Would you like to hear it? Well, funnily enough, no, I wouldn't. So yeah, it was hard. I really, really struggled those first 3 months. Dan was great, right? Like, we really got along with him. Really nice guy, but we were very different and really, really struggled. But it was fine. Aberdeen was brilliant ward. Aberdeen was fantastic. So we also had we had Eldon Peterson. Is that right? Yeah, Elder Peterson and Elder Nielsen as the zone leaders. Why do I want to call Elder Peterson? Wasn't his name like Rolskoff or something like that? Yeah,
that's his middle name.
There we go. That's
Christopher Roskoff Peterson.
Christopher Rolskoff Peterson and David Nielsen from Washington State, who was like a apple farmer or something. And that was really cool. Just really enjoyed spending a lot of time around with the zone leaders in their flat in the high rise in the middle of Aberdeen. Just remember getting woken up one morning about 6 o'clock by some huge fight happening right outside the flat, and it was the dingiest, most horrendous flat that I think I've ever been in. Was that Zach? Were you in that one?
I was in the one on the cobblestone street.
That was the nice one.
That was the nicer one.
Very nice one.
Yeah, the 2-story flat in Aberdeen was, to use a good Scottish word, it was minging. It was nasty.
It was grim. Yeah,
it was.
But it was good fun.
It was.
And then, so Elder Drummond went off somewhere else, and I had Elder Peter Drakakardis, who, funnily enough, is actually from Lichfield, which is where I live now. His family have all moved out, but yeah, that's where he's from. And Pete was just great, right? Great, just really. I don't know if either of you served with the Elder Drakakardis, but he was just a brilliant, down-to-earth, diligent, hard-working, just a nice guy. So I don't have many memories with him because we only served together 2 weeks. And then I was on the other end of an E-move. So not on the bad end. I wasn't the naughty boy. I was, in fact, no one was a naughty boy, so I'm making that. But yeah, I got moved to Thurso, and Elder McClure, Chris McClure, came back down from Thurso to serve with Elder Drakakardis. We did get stopped by the police actually when we were in Aberdeen. So when Elder Drakakardis and I were out chapping one night, a big riot van pulls up, a big, big police van. 3 police people jump out, run up to us on the door. What are you doing? Like, we're missionaries from the church. Anyway, apparently a couple of neighbours had called the police because there were 2 men going door to door down this street. It was quite a nice part of Aberdeen, so maybe we'd upset them. But I just remember Elder Drakakardis absolutely loving it because he fancied the absolute pants off the policewoman, so he thought it was like the best night ever.
Oh, that's too funny.
What I want to do in tonight's podcast is try and say as many controversial things that may or may not be true about other missionaries, which will then force them to come onto the podcast to rebut anything that they think is not accurate.
I love it.
You have the freedom to do so.
Stir the pot.
So no, just great guy. And so yeah, then I got moved up to Thurso, and I served up there with Elder Green, so Andrew Green again. So it's really funny. So maybe I should say this at the end. I don't know, but if you'd have lined up all the missionaries and said you can pick your companion, who do you want it to be? I would not have picked a single one of my companions to be a companion with. However, I absolutely loved every single one of them, and we were all just so different. But I just thought it was brilliant, because where else do you get the exposure to that many different people from different backgrounds, different personalities? You just don't, do you? And so I think that was a real sort of blessing, in fact.
Yes, especially if you consider hours spent with that individual. Like, you just don't get in that situation with anybody.
Yeah, I spend much less time with my wife than I ever did with any of my companions. It's crazy. So Andrew Green, Elder Green, and I remember the first conversation I had with him. There was a senior missionary couple that were in first at the time, the Felsteds, like Myrna and Roy or something. I can't remember the first names. Yeah, but the Felsteds, who were brilliant, really nice. They picked me up from the station in Inverness, I think, and drove me up to Thurso, and met Elder Green, and we were going to go out chapping that afternoon. And I just remember him walking. So before my mission, I was not really a chav. Do you have chav? Ned's chav. You call them Neds in Scotland, right? I wasn't really a Ned. I was probably bordering on it. And Elder Green had turned up to the door, ready to go out chapping, and he had this, like, I don't know how to describe it, like a bag that looked like he'd nicked it off Paddington Bear or something. He was wearing this like giant fedora hat, and he had this walking stick. I was like, what are you wearing? I remember we just had this like big 30-minute conversation where I basically said, listen, Elder Green, I am not going chapping with you while you wear that. Get rid of your hat, get rid of your stick, and I'll carry your bag for you. I'll put it in my rucksack. I am not walking through a street with you like that.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I was. It was cool. I was like, we just had a great time in Thurso. So we had tongue in our area, of course, in Thurso. So we got the obligatory I Love Tongue fridge magnet that every missionary had to have. We didn't really have a teaching pool. We were there over winter, so it's like light at 9 a.m, dark at 3:30 p.m. It was like you'd have sideways rain coming in off the coast, because you were right on the coast there. But a great branch. We had did either of you ever serve in Thurso or go on splits there or anything? Oh my God. It was an experience, right? So Thurso was just like the last outpost of mainland UK, and it just attracts just some interesting characters, I think. Loads of English people there, weirdly enough. So we had a fairly small branch there, and we met in I think it was like a school hall or something like that. I think we might have met in the town hall, in fact, apart from the one Sunday when we got locked out and all had to go and meet in the Felsted's living room, which was interesting. They were much further ahead in their time, because at the time that we had 3-hour church, Thurso only had 2-hour church, which was brilliant, because they couldn't secure a booking at the town hall for longer than 3 hours. So by the time they'd opened up and set up and then had to clear up at the end, we had 2-hour church in Thurso. We had what they called priesthood preparedness nights, and the one Thursday we turned up at this community hall somewhere for priesthood preparedness, and they come in with this bag, two carrier bags. I throw them down on the tables. There's 2 rabbits in one bag and 1 chicken in the other bag, all dead, obviously. They'd been out and caught the rabbits earlier that day, because one of the branch members' friends had ferrets and hawks. So they'd literally gone out with the ferrets and the hawks and caught these 2 rabbits.
Oh my gosh.
They'd got the chicken off someone's farmyard and wrung its neck literally 2 hours before that meeting.
Golly.
And they said, right, in preparation for the last days, we need to know how to feed ourselves and our families. Tonight, we are making rabbit stew and chicken stew.
Oh my
The
gosh.
whole activity was just skinning the rabbits, and clearly something I'd never done before in my life. Like, apparently you have to push the poo out of the rabbit first before you can take its kidneys out, because they're the poisonous bit, or the liver or whatever. Same with the chicken, and then we ate them. That was the refreshment for the evening, was rabbit stew and chicken soup, which was nice.
Wow.
Then at the end of that session, we were told next month we're going to learn how to use shotguns, because if people know that you've got a water supply and food storage, they're going to come after your food if it's the last days. So you need to know how to defend it. So we're going to all get taught how to use. Now, a lot of this, if you're American listening to this, a lot of this might just sound perfectly normal, right? I don't know. But,
Jeez.
Yeah, this is neutral every week for us.
it sounds like something you get in like rural Idaho or something. It was, yeah,
Oh,
it was
man.
gorgeous. But yeah, so back to Elder Green. This is a story that reflects terribly on me, but it's also quite funny, so I'll share it anyway. In fact, all my stories will reflect terribly on me, because most of them are terrible stories. But I thought it'd be really funny. One day we were, I think we'd ironed our shirts just before we were going out, and I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll put this iron on a pound coin, and then I'll flip it at Elder Green, and he'll bat it away, or he'll catch it and realise it's a bit warm and drop it on the floor, which is not actually how it actually happened. He caught it, realised it was really hot, flicked his hand up and flipped the coin into his neck, at which point it burnt his neck. So he snatched his sort of face down, but instead of getting rid of the coin, it stuck between his chin.
Jeez Louise.
So he has the Queen of England scarred on his neck now.
He literally had the Queen of England scarred at a sort of 45-degree angle along his neck, and I've no idea whether that's still there or not. Actually, it was it was certainly there when he left his mission.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
incredible. Elder Green was in the MTC group with me, so
He's a good guy, right?
yeah.
Really, really good guy. What else is there there? So Elder Green left. No, he was replaced by Tobias Megna, who I think had come out on his mission. I think he's about 22, 23 maybe, when he came out on his mission. Again, just a really nice. There's a recurring theme here. I got loads of nice companions, which probably means I was the jerk companion, but
Jeez.
I had a brilliant companion in Elder Megna, and he was just super diligent. Whatever you think of Germans, meticulously on time, everything very neat and tidy. Remember the first Saturday he got to the flat, he's like, right, we are not doing anything before we clean this flat top to bottom. Then he got out his hypoallergenic bed sheets and covered everything in those, and it was brilliant, like absolutely brilliant, just spot on. But then what did we do? I mean, teaching was hard in Thursday. We just spent a whole load of time with less actives, with people who, frankly, lived about 2 hours away from the chapel who couldn't get there. So we used to take the sacrament out to some of them on a Thursday afternoon. We'd go and take the sacrament to someone who lived out miles away. What else did we do? We attempted to push our Corsa to 100 miles an hour. And I think we succeeded once when the wind was blowing in the right way when we were going down a hill.
Oh my gosh.
Got to go and do baptism interviews on Orkney, which was just literally, I think it was about a 3-day journey to go and do a baptismal interview. But it was it was just so different out in Thursday, because the area was, I think it was like 100 miles across and then 100 miles down. So our nearest area was Inverness, So if you wanted to go to, no, it wasn't Inverness. There was one in between, which was called what was it called?
Invergordon.
Invergordon, that's it. Invergordon. So yeah, we drive 2 hours to go to a district meeting in Inverness, and then drive 2 hours back, and that was kind of your day gone.
Wow.
It was good. And then Elder Megan and I closed that area, so we loaded the Corsa up with all the stuff out of the flat, drove down to Inverness, and I remember we had to leave Inverness really early the next morning, and we had a car full of stuff, so it was really, really heavy, and I very almost wrote the car off because it was it was so early in the morning. On the east coast, it gets really cold, right? Like really, really cold, and it would have been probably February, March time, and we were just hurtling down this road at 6:30 a.m. Came up to a roundabout, totally forgot that we'd stuffed the Corsa to the max because it was all of the stuff, from the flat and all of our 2 missionary belongings and all that. Anyway, we just didn't stop, and we just carried on hurtling at this roundabout, and I think we missed it by about 0.5 millimeter, which Elder Megan was not impressed about, I remember.
Oh, jeez.
Deeply unimpressed.
Oh, man.
And where did I go? So I went from there to the office and became an office elder in the Edinburgh Mission home. I served there with Elder Alan. Darren Allen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, was he your group, Jack?
No, he's just older than me, I think.
Okay, cool. So I did 6 weeks with Elder Allen, and the mission home. That was crazy. So working in the mission home was a brilliant experience, like genuinely brilliant experience. So you had to do all the sort of the boring admin sort of stuff. We had to wash the cars. So we had to wash President Vriens' car on our own P-Day, which I never really understood, right? Like, I'm not entirely sure about this, but I think we had to wash the mission van, President Vriens' car, and our own car on a P-Day, while the APs didn't have to wash anyone's car whatsoever. I think they might have had to do their own, but they never bothered. So I eventually did a deal with Elder Lemon that if we took it to the car valeting place, he would reimburse us on our expenses to get it valeted.
That's amazing. I'm sure President Vriens came out and was like, wow, this is the cleanest this car's ever been.
So I don't know how well this story is known, actually. So President Vriens, I think, went home at least twice while he was on his mission. I don't know, maybe even more times, right? But he went home for, I think it might have been one of his daughters or granddaughters or niece's wedding at some point. And
I remember that.
We just had a great time in the mission home for about a week, where I think our P-Day, we were up on the roof of the flat, like the 1960s sort of extension that comes down the side. We were up on the roof with some planes that we'd got from somewhere. I can't remember what they were, but we were us and the APs were just like flying them off the top of the mission home, which was great fun. And then President Vriens shared with us when he got back that he'd run into Elder Oaks, as in the Apostle Elder Oaks in Salt Lake City Airport. President Vriens was like, yeah, I didn't ask for permission to leave my mission area, and Elder Oaks was giving me a bit of a hard time.
Oh my gosh.
The worst possible timing.
There was one instance where he went home for like a surgery, if I remember right, and it actually coincided with someone's, I don't know, like you said, maybe a granddaughter or a daughter or someone's wedding. Because the reason why I remember that is my parents are connected through whoever his family members were marrying, and so they showed up to the wedding reception and were like, your mission president and his wife are here. And I was like, okay, cool. So that was kind of an interesting experience.
Go and read the White Handbook, President Vriens.
That's right. Yes, indeed.
So yeah, what else were we doing there? So I remember one time we had we had to answer the phones as part of our job as office elders, and one night there was a phone call came through, and it was Elder Ford. It was an area authority 70, I think, in the UK at the time, whose son Jason Ford was in Scotland as well at a different time. But I think this was before Jason had arrived, and I called and said, "Oh yeah, sorry, President Vriens is busy at the moment. He's in a different meeting. So you'll need to call back later." And said, "Oh, okay, no worries." Then about 40 minutes later, he calls back. And I said, "Oh, out of Ford, President Vriens has just come off the phone. You must be an inspired man." I laughed, right? I thought it was a funny, yeah, you must be really inspired. You got it at the right time. Elder Ford was not impressed. He was like dead silent, like, "Yes, Elder, put me through." Sorry. But he then got punished by getting sent to be mission president over in Albania. So,
jeez, oh man, that must be a difficult world to be in for mission. That's crazy.
Definitely. And then so Elder Allen went, and Elder Kellogg, OJ, Oliver Kellogg, replaced Elder Allen. And the only thing I remember really about serving with Elder Kellogg was that I gave him a horrendous haircut on P-Day. So we had P-Day on Saturdays in the office. So I think you'd usually have them on a Tuesday, wouldn't you? But in the office, because they needed you there Monday to Friday, you'd have your P-Day on a Saturday. So on Saturday morning, we're upstairs in that sort of the meeting area that we'd had there, and he'd cut my hair. I've never cut hair before in my life. I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. How hard can it be?" Oh, straight at the side. And then I thought what I was going to do was like taper around his ears, but instead of I didn't fit like the taper guard. I just took the guard off and just went right around the edge of the
Oh my gosh!
Actually took it all off. He didn't see the funny side. It would be fair to say, and I think he went into our flat, punched a wall, and came back out again. I don't think he ever forgave me for that. We did have, so we worked in the office at that point, me and Kellogg, and we had the best numbers in the entire Edinburgh district for 6 weeks consecutively. And I remember President Vriens absolutely chewing out a district meeting there, going, "I've got elders here who are working 8 hours a day and are still getting better numbers than all of you. What's going on here?"
Oh gosh!
I mean, nothing to do with us whatsoever, but it was we didn't get any baptisms out of it, but it was just. And so, did either of you serve in Edinburgh Ward?
No, we did not.
Oh, brilliant ward, great ward. But other people will tell you about those memories, I'm sure. And then where did I go? From Edinburgh, I went to Dundee, where you did serve, didn't you, Zack?
I was just outside of Dundee, both ends. I was in the Montrose ward.
Ah, that's it. Yeah.
I think that's where we came across one another.
That's it. So I was back with Elder Megna in Dundee. I clearly hadn't done a good enough job the first time around. Well, there were still things I needed to learn from him. So I got put back with Elder Megna. So before I arrived, he was companions with Elder Muirhead. If you remember Elder Muirhead. Mm-hmm. They were like a dream team together, I think. They were out every day. They were hard workers. So it's brilliant because I just walked into a huge teaching pool with loads of people. And that was the first time that I'd actually had a proper teaching pool. And I think I was probably 12 months into my mission at that point. I thought, wow, this is what missionary work can actually be like. So we had Nessie, who we baptized, who was like a lady in her 80s. And I always remember teaching her the law of chastity. I was like, I just remember absolutely dying in this lesson, having some of those conversations with like an 85-year-old woman. But we were diligent, and we taught the lesson as it should be taught.
Jeez Louise.
It was, she was great. We baptised Eileen, who was another elderly sister who the sisters had been teaching, but I think the sisters got moved out, so we picked up the area or something. I don't know. Ray and Joan, who also got baptised, and I think one of those was in a wheelchair. I think so. They got baptised in like a. Were you there at that one, Zack? They got baptised in like a garden chair or something, didn't they? They literally got like a white lawn chair.
I don't remember that. No, I don't.
I wasn't there, but I think I heard about that one.
Yeah,
because it's such a unique thing.
Unique. I think we made sure that we got a white garden chair as well, just to be just to be a bit extra.
That's too funny.
So Dundee, we had the legendary water fight at our flat in Dundee, and in fact, I saw. Were you there at that, Zack?
Yes, I was.
Well, that was brilliant, and you must have seen the brilliant photo of Caleb Spragg bursting a water balloon above Krista Heap's head.
Oh yeah.
We managed to catch the photo just as they'd already broken the water balloon above her head, but the water hadn't reached her head yet, so she's still smiling away, grinning, with this water sat about half an inch above her head.
Oh my gosh.
It's a brilliant photo.
Do you still have a copy of that you can share with us?
You know what? I actually saw it earlier on someone's Facebook. I don't have a copy. I took the photo, I think, and I've no idea where the original is, but I saw it on someone's Facebook literally today or yesterday. I'll go and have a look for it.
Yeah. Well, when we talked to Spragg, I pulled out the picture of that event with all of us like posing, and it was clearly after Sister Heap had been doused with water, and she in that picture does not look pleased whatsoever. and I said to Caleb, I said, you know what, we naive elders didn't give much thought to the sisters and how they would get themselves ready in the morning and do the thing. And I thought to myself, she probably had just washed her hair or done something to, make it nice for a few days, and we ruined it by getting her hair wet. So that was something else. That was a really fun activity day, though.
That was good. It was good fun. So I was district leader in Dundee, I think. Yeah, I was. Yeah. So when I got with Elder Megna, I was district leader, and I remember just having some really, really positive sort of district meetings at the Dundee Chapel. They're just a really cool district, and I think we had a lot of fun, but we also worked really hard as well. I remember it was the time when we were properly into preach my gospel at that point, weren't we? And we were really being sort of, as part of the certification process, you'd need to learn the commitments associated with each lesson. So there's sort of the will you questions at the end. I remember as district leader, I was trying to get Sister Kenny certified on the fifth lesson, I think, Eternal Families, whichever one it was. And we were going through it, so everyone else was doing another activity in the room next to us with the door open. I'm sure we were probably in the corridor or something. It was all legitimate. And I just remember, so we're going through the lesson, and she'd hit all the points, and then I said, "Yep, okay, great. And what's the commitment that's associated with this part of the lesson, or whatever?" And so she started with the will you marry me? No, Sister Kenny, that is not the approach. It is fun.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
That is a commitment to eternal family, but it's not part of the mission.
I was going to say, yeah, that's what happens to missionaries, didn't?
Oh my gosh.
That's so then funny. I trained after that Elder Canucci. Jason Canucci from North Wales-ish area. Again, just a great, grounded, sensible person. The yin to my yang. And we had a good 6 weeks together before I then got booted over to Irvine, where I served as zone leader with Joseph Bautista, who you know well, who you've had here. He's just a great guy, isn't he? Brilliant.
Yep.
Yeah, unbelievable.
He's just hardworking, great sense of humour, not scared of having fun, but equally knew exactly what needed to be done and focused. And Aldo Bautista, if you're listening to this, I did actually own a Volvo for most of my years between my mission and now, but not now. Got rid of it. He's very insistent that you must have a Volvo.
That's too funny. Oh man.
The funniest thing that happened with when I was with Aldo Bautista, and this isn't even one of our stories. So we had so the Irvine flat that we moved into was actually a house, 2-story house, and clearly some missionaries at some point in the past had fed a stray cat, and so this stray cat would turn up at the house and come wandering in through whichever open door, because it was summertime, so whatever window it came, it'd be this. I'm a dog person anyway, right? I don't really like cats, but what I really don't like is manky stray cats. And this was just like matted fur and just like a little bit smelly and a bit riffy. So I said, right, Aldo Bautista, we are not feeding this cat. That cat can go elsewhere because I really don't want this rank cat turning up at our flat every day. So we stopped feeding it, and it stopped coming anywhere near the flat. And then so at the same time, upstairs in this house, we had a washing machine, and it was a tumble dryer, and so it was the ones with like the tubes out the back, so it wouldn't collect in a drawer that you empty. It'd have one of those big ventilation tubes that goes out, and because clearly no one had thought to actually fit it into the wall through a proper ventilator fan, they'd just hang out the window, and the window was permanently open. And so then one night, we're in our bedroom, which is also upstairs, and it's down the corridor from this tumble dryer. And I was having this horrendous nightmare that this cat had got into the house somehow and had jumped up onto my bed, and then its face was suddenly in my face, and its eyes were huge, and it was like screeching at me. And in my dream, I think I got a tennis racket or something and hit it, but nothing was happening. And then I was woken up from this dream by a noise out in the corridor, and it was a cat that had got in and did exactly what I was just dreaming about. It ran in, it came along the tumble dryer, ran along the corridor, and jumped up straight onto my bed.
Oh my gosh.
It booted this cat so hard. So scared. And luckily, unlike in my dream where nothing happened, it did just run out of a different window and we never saw it again. But that was really weird. Sorry about this. That's all I remember out about 6 weeks of serving with you.
Premonition.
What else did we do in Irvine? To Chris Mace, Aldo Mace replaced Aldo Bautista as zone leader there in Irvine. And Chris just used to play the guitar all the time. Like I'd go to bed at 10:30 and he'd be up singing and playing music. But we had a baptism there. We had the Dickinson's family they lived in Dundonald, which is just outside of Irvine, and we baptised this brilliant family, like lovely family. And Emily was 12 when we baptised her, and she didn't really get the concept, even though we'd run through with her several times before. She didn't really get the concept of how a baptism worked. Because she didn't understand, we were saying, just sit down, well, I'll hold your arm like this and I'll hold this, and you just sit down and you'll just have to tilt your head at the end. Totally didn't get it whatsoever. So we've got the doors open, I'm stood there in white, getting ready to baptise her. And fully push her down, and she's kind of struggling a little bit, and I'm thinking, oh, this really doesn't look good, so I push her down a little bit harder, and then the bishop at the time says, no, her toe came up. I was like, yeah, I know her toe came up, but she was under the water. At one point, she was all under the water, so that's okay. No, it doesn't count because her toe came up afterwards. So, well, I'm sure it does count, but anyway. But at this point, there's a 12-year-old girl who's just been dumped in flipping tepid water because they couldn't get the heating working properly, and she's now crying, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh,
Oh man,
this is horrendous. So we ended up having to shut the doors and close it over the baptismal font. And I said, "Do you still want to be baptized?" She's like, yeah. And then I just literally had to stand on her feet. I just remember putting my foot on her feet and just pushing her down. Your toes are not going to come out of the water this time. Yeah, felt really bad about that. That still haunts me to this day. 17 years later, I'm dunking this 12-year-old girl under the water. What else? So Irvine, did either of you serve in Irvine or Paisley Stake?
I was in Johnston for 6 weeks, so it wasn't really the depths of Paisley, but pretty close.
Yeah. So Irvine I just remember it being really rough. So I remember some Neds coming up we were standing by a bus stop, got hit over the head by a can of beer, and the can of beer split open as it hit my head and started shooting beer all over this woman ahead of me in the queue, waiting for the bus. And so she turns round. Now, there's a group of about 20 Neds standing over there who are all drunk out of their faces. There's me stood behind her with a side parting and a suit on. And yet she thinks that I'm the one that's just throwing this beer at her. So she starts having an absolute go at me, hitting me with her umbrella. What do you think you're doing? What are you doing that for? Look around you. Do you think it was me? Or do you think it was those gents over there? It's just wild. And then,
oh my gosh.
When they saw it in there, Elder Mason, DAs, we had some brilliant DAs there, but we were teaching this one woman who insisted on calling me Simon. And I've still to this day no idea why she called me Simon. But you know, when eventually you just think, okay, just call me Simon. That's fine. I don't know that's my name, but I'll let it be my name. And she said, oh, do you want a biscuit? Yeah, great. Okay, I'll have a biscuit. So we're thinking she's going to give us a couple of biscuits each. She doesn't. She gives us some soup. Okay. Then she goes and gets us some gammon and chips. Then she gives us some like blancmange and jelly or something. It just keeps on coming, this food. Immediately after that, we already had a dinner appointment booked in with the Wild family. And we were just thinking, what are we going to do? This is awful. So then we get to the Wilds, and they always did a 3-course meal every single time, 3-course meal. So we've already eaten this 3-course meal already. Then we get served, I think it was like oxtail soup or something for the starter. And that was kind of settling down on top of jelly and blancmange from this previous dinner. And I just remember Chris just running to the toilet, vomiting like everything, and then coming back pretending like nothing had happened and just carried on eating the rest of his meal.
Oh my gosh. It's too funny.
Then from Irvine, went to Glasgow, served 6 weeks with Elder Bear, the legend that is Brian Bear. He's already told you the snowball story, so I can't retell that. But it was absolutely hilarious, and my kids enjoyed listening to that story. What he didn't tell you, though, and this is his story, but because he didn't tell it, I'm going to share it. Immediately, so I got there just after Christmas. It might have been between Christmas and New Year, in fact. And there were these pine needles everywhere in the flaps. Where are these from? Because you don't have a Christmas tree. So, oh yeah, him and Alfonso Blake, who was serving there before me, and it's very similar to another story that someone, I can't remember who shared it, but had basically gone and hacked down a tree from round the corner, dragged it up to their flat, used it as a Christmas tree, and then the flat at the time was right next to a river. So immediately after Christmas, they then had to dispose of the evidence and chucked this tree back into a river. Vandals, absolute vandals.
Oh my God. You just pricked a memory for me, Doug, because Elder Farnsworth went a few weeks early, and I'd mixed them up. I'd forgotten that you had replace me because I was with Bear for 2 weeks before you then.
Ah, right. Okay.
Because I remember I had gotten there. It had to have been like just before Christmas. No, yeah, it was because my like first day or second day in the Montrose ward was Christmas Day, so I was just before you, so
Cool.
I remember that Christmas tree. And now that you reminded me that the flat was by the river, I remember the tiny kitchen and the view over.
Yeah.
I just went right back into that flat. That's kind of funny.
It's a great flat, really, really good.
It was.
And it was just about in the nice area as well. Kelvin Grove, wasn't it? If you went up the hill, you'd get to Mary Hill, I think.
Yeah,
if you
I think you're right.
You'd be in a nicer, nicer area. In fact, I went back there weirdly. I was staying in Glasgow with work, and actually went down the same road as that. I was like, oh gosh, memories unlocked. Yeah, so we covered in Glasgow. We covered Julian Road ward and we covered Springboy ward, and my very first Sunday there, they had to change the timings for church for Christmas. We obviously hadn't got the memo, so my first Sunday in that ward, we actually missed church. We arrived there for the closing hymn.
Oh my gosh!
The bishop, I can't remember who the bishop was, but he was absolutely livid with us. He was absolutely fuming, and I don't think we went back again. I think every other Sunday we went back to the Springboy branch because they kind of met in a school. It was it had been. Branch president there was the Padarangas, Filipino family.
Yeah,
just so nice, just great people who would open up the home to anybody. And the Springboy branch was great. It was in a slightly more gritty end of Glasgow, I think, is the polite way of describing it, but absolutely loved it.
That's right.
Then what else did we do? So, and then I ended up somehow getting called as the AP, didn't I? that's when every missionary lost their entire testimony in a church. What? I must have been like the only person with a driving license or something. So I did 6 weeks as a travelling missionary. So I spent 6 weeks by myself, travelling between areas, and spent a whole load of time right across Scotland with a bunch of different companionships, just kind of getting to know their area and kind of working out how we address some of the challenges that they were facing at that time. And that was great because Elder Lemon had put some extra money in my account because he said, oh, it's going to be really expensive travelling around. You're going to have to be buying fresh food every few days, because I think I saw probably about 8 or 9 companionships in those 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So we put a whole load of extra money in my account, and actually that wasn't what happened whatsoever. I just ate all the missionaries' food that I was staying with, and I ended up just living off like Welch's grape juice and Ben and Jerry's ice cream for 6 weeks. But that was
missionary metabolism.
Yeah, that was a really unique experience, I think, because I'd literally spent at that point sort of 19 months or so, just full time with somebody every single minute of the day, and all of a sudden you're on a cross country bus trip for 4 hours by yourself, going between areas, and it was weird, actually. Really, kind of threw you out a little bit. Like, well, this is odd.
Right.
But yeah, that was enjoyable. Getting to know a whole load of different companionships. Then went back to the office and was with Elder Farnsworth for 6 weeks, Blake for 6 weeks, and then Elder DePold for another 6 weeks. And that was, living in the mission home was great, really good. Daily prayers every day in the mission home, 10 a.m. We had DAs with the Vrienses fairly regularly, which I really enjoyed. We really had to be on your best behaviour, because Sister Vriens would call you out very, very quickly if you did anything wrong. I remember crossing over, I think we'd eaten dinner one Sunday afternoon, and Sister Vriens said, does anyone want some fruit? There's a fruit bowl over there. So I'd walked over to the fruit bowl, got myself an apple. I can't remember who else was there. Somebody asked for some fruit, for an apple as well. So I'm stood on one side of the table. President and Sister Vriens are at the head of the table, and this elder stood the other side of the table. So I just did a nice, gentle underarm throw of the apple to him. Sister Vriens was pissed, and she told me she was. Yeah, so not good. Well, so we went to Stornoway for I think 3 or 4 days. Elder DePold and I went up there to see if it was worth opening up, and we did. We opened it back up, so we stayed in the branch president's home for 2 or 3 days. We got chucked out of someone's house in Stornoway. We'd a member of the church. We'd gone there to just introduce ourselves and get to know the branch, and it was bad, right? We shouldn't have done this, but it was funny. She started reading to us this book about how everyone in Stornoway, or the Hebrides, are descended from one of the lost tribes of Israel, and how it was just making a whole load of these really like tenuous connections between place names in Stornoway and ancient Israel and stuff like this. And me and Elder DePold at one point, we just started laughing because it was so funny. she just called us out on it straight away. You're so disrespectful. Get out of my house. You're not coming back. And then text us again after we'd left saying, I mean it. Don't ever come back.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then last story then, while I was AP, we went on so after we'd have like 2 day zone conferences, wouldn't we? So we'd do interviews on the one day, and then we do zone conference the next, or the other way around. And we'd usually stay over with some elders from the area. And I'm pretty sure it was with Elder Peacock, Bryant Peacock. Again, great guy. And I want to say we were out in Beath. I've no idea why it would have been Beath, but I think it was. And we'd gone chapping on this road, and it's like kind of like a T shape. So where you drove in through the long part of the T, and then it was a cul-de-sac at both ends. So we drove in, parked the car down in one corner, and began chapping this street. And as we went past this, you know those streets where there's like the one house which has got settees in the front garden, and all the windows are all falling apart, and there's kids running around in like their shorts and nothing else everywhere. And we're like, oh, okay, like, whatever, So we knocked on the door, and they're all a little bit aggressive, but nothing too bad. And we carry on going, and it's time to go. So we walk back to the car, and we see all these kids running down the street ahead of us, and we think, that's weird, what's going on? And I was in President Vriens' car, so I borrowed his Vauxhall Amiga or whatever it was, Air Force One, that we used to drive him around in. And as we're driving up this road, going into cul-de-sacs, there's only one way out. These kids have gone and got a whole load of wheelie bins and tyres and bits of wood, and just put this barricade right across the street. And then I see them running down with like bits of wood and baseball bats and stuff in the rearview mirror. I was like, I'm sure it's out of Peacock. I'm just so sorry about this. And I just floored it and just flew at these wheelie bins. Drove through them, and we got through them. It's fine. But I remember having to apologise to President Vriens that there might be some slight scuffs on his car while we were escaping these kids.
Oh my gosh, that's like something out of a movie.
It was absolutely bonkers. Yeah, it was great fun.
Oh my gosh. It's funny. We're actually talking to Brant this evening, and I will bring that up to him and see if he remembers it.
He'll probably go, no, I don't know what he's talking about. It must have been someone else.
He'll completely deny it and make sure that you are responsible and not him. Oh man, that's too funny.
So yeah, that's the and then that was it. I went home, survived the 2 years, and as I say, what a learning experience! What a absolutely unique experience to be able to be involved in for all of us. And we're catching up now, 17 years later, like we haven't skipped a day. It's crazy.
It's true.
Yeah. Like we talked before we started, right? It's just this tidal wave comes back and it's all there. It's all real life.
Yeah, it really
A
is.
lifetime ago, but
And it literally is a lifetime ago, isn't it? Well, not a lifetime, but you know what I mean?
yeah.
Almost a generation.
Yep. I mean, you're a
Zack,
grandpa, so it is a generation.
yeah, exactly. Zack, where did we serve in the same? So we met in Montrose. You'd have been in Montrose, right?
Well, I was reflecting on it because when you were in Dundee and for that water fight, I was serving in Dunfermline at the time. So I was down in the southern part of the Dundee zone at that point, and then I mean we crossed paths so many different times throughout the mission. I mean, because I think you came in a few days before transfers for when you went to Glasgow, if I remember right. Is that true, or am I remembering incorrect?
I don't remember that, but it doesn't mean it's not true.
But I remember we had some time together before I left, and I don't know. And then I think when you were back with Elder Megner, I think Megner had left, and you trained Canucci. Because I'm pretty sure Canucci's in the same group as Elder Marsh when I trained, or maybe just a little bit earlier. But I was in Montrose from Christmas for 6 months, so I was there till summer, and I think we were there together at that point, at least for a little bit of time.
So I remember seeing you when you were serving with Elder Balloch. So where did you when you served with Elder Balloch? That
was when we were in Johnston.
That's it. Yeah. Did you ever end up getting along?
I mean, I reflected on that companionship in my own episode, and you know, it was an interesting experience, right? Because it was the second time I'd served with an Englishman. I had Conway before that for 6 weeks, and then I was actually with Elder Littlefield for 4.5 months before I was with Ross Balloch. And when we got there, you know, I was more senior in the mission, and we had been whitewashed into Johnston, and he came in as if he knew how he was going to do it, how we were going to run the show. And I kind of had to take a back seat, which was not really my personality type. And I'm going to say it wasn't a negotiation. It was more of a, this is what we're doing. And I kind of had to be like, you know, I had a couple of instances where I was just like, man, this is just, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. But yeah, I had some good reminders from missionaries like yourself. And I don't know, we had a great flat in Johnston. I loved it. And there was plenty of room in that flat where you could kind of get away from one another. Because if you remember, you know, you go in the entrance, you go up the stairs, and then we were on top of like some shops. There was a front living room, and then one of the bedrooms on the main level, and then the kitchen at the back. And then there was another set of stairs that went up to 2 more bedrooms. And that's where we slept. Like, yeah. And so it was a huge flat for just the 2 of us. But the funny thing was, and I'm having a recollection now, is the larger room upstairs, when I got there, they had crammed all of the beds into the smaller room up there. And I was like, why are we doing this? And Elder Balloch was like, well, I was told before I got here that they had like a wasp problem.
Yeah.
Right. And there were wasps that were either in the attic or some crawl space between the roof that had found their way through the light fixtures into that room. And so it was like the largest bedroom in our flat, and we couldn't even use it because it was something else. So
there definitely was a wasp nest in there, because when we went down to the temple, when we organised that trip, we slept over in the Johnston flat. I don't know if you were there then or not.
I probably wasn't.
But somebody got stung in the forehead overnight. I want to say it was Elder Wilkin. But they literally got stung in the forehead by that very same wasp nest.
Well, the fact that, I mean, again, I look back on it and I wonder to myself, like, why didn't we ask our landlords to take care of some of these
Rid of
things,
the
you know? Like you hear
Yeah.
all these stories from missionaries living in horrendous conditions. And, Elder Malloy was on a few days ago, and he talked about his furniture being sticky from like horrible, like dog and cat urine. And I was like,
Oh,
how in the world did we missionaries just go in there and say, oh, this is a lovely place to live?
yeah.
But it happened more often than not, because we were so focused on what we were about that it didn't really bother us much, because we didn't spend most of our time in the flat anyway.
Did Elder Malloy tell you that he always used to sleep on the floor?
No.
That's my core memory of Elder Malloy, is that for his back, he would always sleep on the floor for some reason. Literally just on like a mat on the floor. He loved it.
Interesting. Well,
so go on.
No, I was just going to say, just recollecting on the mattresses, and for Elder Malloy, he's a bigger guy like myself. I mean, I had some mattresses I was like, this thing should have been in the rubbish bin a long time ago, and yet people have been sleeping on this. And I remember in Dunfermline, this is a funny story too, Elder Conway slept on like this cot. I swear, it was the smallest bed I'd ever seen. And
is this
there, yeah, well, he was, right? It kind of suited him. But the funny part was there was like a matching size bed like that for me the first few days, and I was like, there's no way I'm sleeping in this tiny twin bed. I mean, it was like a grizzly bear sleeping on a hammock. And I told him, I said, I'm going to move. There was another like I think it was a queen size bed, or maybe a little smaller than that. I said, I'm going to sleep on this bed. And so I moved it in. And then Elder Littlefield came in and slept on that same cot. And I was like, how are you sleeping on this thing? It just didn't make sense to me, because I had to be comfortable. And if I didn't get a good night's sleep, I was not pleasant to be around. So funny memories.
There's a memory we're just talking about that trip down to Preston when it would have been Elder Nelson at the time came over.
Yeah.
So organising that was an absolute logistical nightmare, right? So I was AP at the time. We were organising where all the missionaries were going to be staying over. So obviously we had to get everyone off the Shetland Islands, for instance, from all the far-flung places, get them into sort of flats in like Johnston. In fact, I think we tried to get everyone into flats in Glasgow, because that was the M6 would run you straight down to Preston from there. Mm-hmm. And I think we had some missionaries go down the night before and stay over. We had other missionaries come down the morning of the conference, and we had to work out which missionaries were going to sleep in which flat. It was just absolute. It was probably not that complex, but it felt complex at the time. And I think we had 2 or 3 coaches go down there. Mm-hmm. And so on the way back, everyone had a specific coach to get on, because the coaches were going to different places. One was going to go back to Edinburgh and one was going to go back to Glasgow. And I don't remember who the elder was, but one elder got on the wrong coach and was headed for Edinburgh when he should have been in Glasgow or something. And so I'm on the phone and he's going, I'm on the wrong coach. Okay, well, we literally counted you all onto the right coaches. I have no idea how you're on the wrong coach, but whatever. So well, you're just going to have to work out a way to get from Edinburgh to Glasgow, and we were trying to sort that out. And then we got stuck in a traffic jam on the M6, and I called him up and said, "What can you see at the moment?" So, there's like a big red truck or whatever, and we're under a bridge. Like, right, we are about 1/4 mile behind you. Get off the coach.
I remember this because I think I was in Hamilton at the time.
So I think what happened is I ran to his coach and got him off the coach literally while we're in this traffic, and thinking, please don't please don't suddenly start moving, else we're going to be absolutely naked. And then ran back down the hard shoulder of this motorway to get him onto the right coach. And there were a couple of senior missionaries on the same coach as me, and they were just going absolutely mental. Like, what are you doing? We're on a motorway. But they're Americans. So I was like, listen, I'm the AP. It's different to America. It's all fine. Don't worry about it. And we with memory like pegging it down the motorway, desperately hoping the cars don't start moving.
Man, I completely forgot about that till you just brought that up. That's hilarious.
Funny stories, man. Funny.
Yeah.
Where would we have interacted at? I don't think we served around each other that much, did we?
Not much. Maybe when you were in the office a little bit, I might have been around. I don't know.
Yeah,
Falkirk area, maybe part of the Edinburgh zone.
Yeah.
And then I served the last 7.5 months of my mission in Glenrothes, so part of the Dundee area zone around there. So cross paths a couple times, but not real close.
So there's so many missionaries that we served around but never with. That kind of stick in my mind. It's just funny elders. You need to get. Who else have you got? So you said you've got Elder Malloy. Who else have you got lined up or already done?
So we've already spoken with and are scheduled with Elder Malloy, and then we spoke with Mark Rittman, Elder Rittman, and Dan Conway, and then
Dan. Have you already done Dan? You've already done his.
Yeah, that was something else.
Has he told you that you almost got banned from going on his mission? Please tell me that he shared that story with you.
No, please go ahead and share it with us. Dan
will have to come back on your podcast to fight this one. So Dan and his friend both at a YSA conference before their missions for a dare got butt naked and ran across the beach and almost got banned from going on his mission for it. Sorry, Dan.
It's funny you bring that story up because I think I heard it, but I don't remember when or where because I don't think Dan told me that, but it's pretty funny. But so like I said, we're speaking with Peacock later today.
Brilliant.
Brennan Fish tomorrow.
Yes.
And then Sister Kate Reed, one of the senior sisters. Speaking with her on later this week, and then we're actually speaking with Elder Megner, with Tobias and James McCabe, which he was kind of after your time.
No, he wasn't. I saw him when I was a traveling missionary. Spent some time with Elder McCabe. I think he was with Elder Littlefield when I saw Elder McCabe.
Okay.
I think I'm sure that was in Peterhead.
I don't. Yeah, maybe you could be right. I don't remember him being in Peterhead, but I mean, he'll jog our memories.
Yeah, so I always remember him mocking me because I couldn't do couldn't do my cuffs up on my sleeves. I had to like shrink my arm into my sleeve to do my cuffs up, and he'd literally laughed at me every morning when I was getting dressed for not being able to do my cuff buttons up.
Because your shirt had just shrunk up, or what?
No, just because I'm cack-handed and I can't do my cuff buttons with one hand.
Oh, got it. Okay, that's funny. And then we're talking with Brian Barber.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Christian Lucas.
Yeah.
Is next Sunday. And then we actually are catching up with President Sister Vriens next week.
Yeah, I saw that. Well, we need to send in some memories, don't we? Is that what we want to do?
I mean, anything that, even just a message to them that we can share in your behalf too. I mean, it'll be a unique interaction just because of the state of their memory, but we'll do the best we can. So, and then after that, we're speaking with Jeremy West and Jade McGowan.
Yeah.
Ashley Devine.
Yeah.
And then we have a companionship conversation with Richard McConkey and Alistair Martin.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's what we have on our future schedule as of this recording.
What a lineup!
There's a lot more that are willing, and we just haven't got them on the calendar yet. That we will. So
we need to ask President Vriens about his final. So on your moves calls, he'd always say, "Elder, your next companion is Elder Hewlett and his 6'4" and fantastic guy. You'll love him. And then on the final moves call that you'd get was, Elder, your next companion is Brenda. She weighs 240 pounds. She's got purple spiky hair. She'll keep you warm in the winter, give you shade in the summer.
Oh my
It
God.
just makes like the most ridiculous things about your future wife.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny guy. So my first son has got William as a middle name after President Vriens. He was absolute father figure to me for those 2 years, and love him dearly. Brilliant guy.
Yeah, that's a great segue. You know, beyond that father figure piece, what are some other memories you have of President Sister Vriens that you can share with us?
Oof. So Piggy Nose comes up every time, right? Just Heidi dancing around with some pig nose on her down at the aisle of a chapel. It's just great.
Yes.
President Vriens' hand on your shoulder, which felt like 5 times the size of any other man's hand that I've ever felt in my life. Just clamping onto your shoulder.
Yep.
I suppose what I remember most about President Vriens, it's not any sort of specific memories as such, but it's just the genuine love that he had for all the elders and sisters. He was an absolute stickler for the rules when people needed to be kept in line, but equally when people messed up, when people had done just stupid things, he was so full of love and compassion for them to say, look, you know, it's a bunch of 19 and 20 and 21-year-old boys. Of course, they're going to do stupid things. Give them a break. And he said to me, I remember him saying to me clearly after a round of interviews, he didn't divulge any details, but he just said, you know, Elder Pullen, I wish that elders just weren't so hard on themselves all the time. And I just thought, what a great sort of understanding of what it's like to be a missionary, and that to me just demonstrated that sort of deep love that he had for his missionaries, and he absolutely drove us hard. But there, underlying all of that was a sincere love and affection, I think, for all of his missionaries.
Yeah.
My only other memory that comes immediately to mind, which is awful because I spent 3 months in the mission home as an office elder and then another 3 months in the mission home as an AP, so I should really have a few more memories. Maybe they'll come to me afterwards. But I remember having not an argument, but a fairly strong discussion with him in a zone leader training meeting when I was a zone leader, because what he'd done. In fact, it was one of the APs at the time, actually. It wasn't President Vriens. But he had this whole thing about, we need to go after the ties, elders. We need the people with ties. We need people with jobs and good people to bring into the church. And they'd drawn a map of Edinburgh, and they'd created what they called like the red zone or something. And that was banned. Like, you weren't allowed to go and find people in the red zone. And after a couple of questions, I was like, President Vriens, how do you think, it was basically, that's the poor area, so we don't want you to go knock on doors there. So President Vriens, how do you think that really lines up with our with the commission to preach the gospel to all the world? Do you think it actually aligns with the commission that we've got? And he gave me some really sort of, woolly answers like, well, Elder, you follow the Spirit and you do what you need to do. He probably should have just told me to shut up and stop being so stupid, but he didn't. He responded with love.
That probably sealed your fate into being the assistant to the president. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
He's
you do that, you little jerk.
He's like, okay, yeah, let's get you to run the show for a minute, and I'll give you the behind the curtains look.
Exactly that.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was just great. Just him and Sister Vriens. Yeah, other than annoying Sister Vriens by throwing an apple over the dinner table, annoying President Vriens by challenging him on the red zone. We had great times. And chauffeuring him everywhere, so he hated driving back. I don't think they liked driving in the UK, actually. So anytime we'd been to a zone conference, we'd always chauffeur him and Sister Vriens back. But we thought it was great because you got to drive his car and sit in the front. It was brilliant.
Yeah. I was always curious about how they got on with driving because, us 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds are just like, yeah, gung ho, give us the wheel and we'll tackle these roundabouts as if it's no business, right? But for someone who's older and may not have the responsiveness when it comes to driving a car, I can imagine it would be a little stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. So the final memory that I'll share about President Vriens was, so he obviously had a business running in Utah, and I think I can't remember whether it was in Arizona at the time or not, but it was certainly running up in Utah, wasn't it? And I think he'd entrusted it to his sons to look after while he was on his mission. And I remember coming down late one night, it's about 11 o'clock in the mission home, because I could hear this talking downstairs, and I'd gone down. There's President Vriens on the phone in his office with the door still open, and he was just chewing someone out so loudly, like, "What do you mean the revenue's down? Yeah, this many $1,000. I just don't understand it. What?" If I ever think he's giving a missionary a hard time, whoever's on the other end of that phone is getting a hard time right now.
Oh man, that's a unique insight right there. Because again, a lot of us didn't really think a whole lot about what he had going on or what he'd set aside to be there, and
exactly,
it's
right.
Very, very true.
Got a big business that he would have carried all that stress and strain through his mission as well. Absolutely,
right.
It's good.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Yeah, we've enjoyed catching up. While we're thinking on it, we've already mentioned a bunch of people, but is there anybody else that you'd like to hear from that we haven't mentioned already?
So you definitely need to get Rick Midgley on there. If you got Rick lined up, get Rick on here.
Do you still have contact with him?
Yeah, I think we tend to sort of message about once a year, and my biggest interactions with him is giving kudos to each other on our bike rides on Strava, which just reeks of us reaching middle age, really, doesn't it?
A digital high five for a good bike ride.
Yeah, exactly that. Who else could you get on here? You've had Elder Bautista, you've had him. Elder DePold, Jonathan DePold, he'd be brilliant to get on. He's a thoughtful individual. And you've got Elder Fish. Elder Fish is funny, man. Elder Fish is hilarious. Yeah. I don't know why this core memory sticks out with Elder Fish, but I remember we were driving somewhere, and I think it was when him and Rasmussen, I think, were zone leaders in, I want to say Dundee. Was it Dundee they were in?
Yep, they were. Mm-hmm.
And, I just remember making an innocent remark about, there was this like lake outside their flat that had an island in the middle. I wonder if you put 2 rabbits on that island, how long it would take for the entire island to be overflowing. I just remember Elder Fish like laughing about it for like the next 2 days, going, "Don't you are so weird."
Oh man, that's too funny. I have been in contact with Jonathan DePold, and he's a future guest. So
brilliant, cool. Because he's in England at the moment, I think, isn't he? He's down at US Air Force Base in Cambridgeshire, I think.
Is that where he's at?
Yeah, pretty sure he's just outside of St Albans in the UK.
I did not know that. That's good to know. Keep that in mind when it comes to scheduling our time.
Yeah, you might need to do him. Early on in the afternoon for US time, definitely.
Exactly. Anyone else that you can think of?
See, I'm going to miss out people here now, aren't I? No, that would do you. I think you'd have Elder Zinkowski would be a good shout. Andrei Zinkowski, get him to spend some time with you, because he was a big character, right? I had some flipping hilarious. I went on exchange with Elder Zinkowski once, and we were teaching this guy in his flat, and it was like, like a totally bare flat. The guy's got loads of beer cans and cigarette ends just stacking up, and I'm just like, what's going on? Like, this guy's just not listening to us or anything. And all of a sudden, Elder Zinkowski gets up, gets his scriptures out, and you know how people have the big but old TVs in the corner of the room. He goes and stands behind the TV in this guy's living room, puts his scriptures on top of the TV like it's a lectern, and starts like preaching and slapping the TV and like, you listen to. I remember just thinking, what on earth is going on? Like, what am I doing and where am I? Just
Oh
funny.
my gosh, that is pretty funny.
The fish will tell you about when we went on exchanges and I fell asleep while he was teaching a lesson. I used to get so tired on my mission, so tired, and I'd just randomly fall asleep. And that was, like the last probably 4 or 5 months of my mission. I was absolutely knackered, and I'd literally go to sleep if I was sat still for longer than 5 minutes, not talking. I'd be straight out of it.
Oh man, that's too funny. I'm sure we all had those experiences.
Yeah,
you're in a too warm of a flat, and all of a sudden it's like you're in a nice warm bed, and you're just like, okay, bye.
Yep.
That's funny.
But no, it sounds like you've got a stellar lineup coming over the next few weeks. Yeah,
we do, and again, the reach of this is so great. I mean, Jack and I can both attest to it. Like, the people we've already talked to have been great, and there's so many more.
Yeah,
it's just it seems like it. I've had a few thoughts where I'm like, are we talking to too many people too quickly? And I'm like, there's no way. Like, this thing could go on for the next 10 years and we may not cover them all, right? And who knows? It might even grow beyond our stretch of time, like we're kind of thinking 2002 to 2008, 2009. There's so many more that I'm sure would be all over talking to us.
Have you got any members lined up?
Not yet.
Is that a mission creep? Is that not on the agenda?
We plan to. We do plan to.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be really.
We've had a few suggestions as to people that we could have on, and obviously we all have our favorite people from areas that we could reach out to via some channel and say, hey, would you be willing to do something like this? But my biggest thing is I shared it with the ward in Montrose and with the Aberdeen stake, because I spent majority of my mission in those two areas, and I know that they're listening to it. So hopefully there's some connections there, people that they want to get on. I still have very close conversations with President Payne and his family from the Aberdeen. They live in Texas now. I was going to
say, was he the Canadian involved in the oil industry?
Yeah, so they are in Texas now. Callum is getting ready to go on his mission, crazy enough. He was just a small one when we were there. And the 3 older daughters are all married. And so it's been amazing to follow their journey. But I connected very, very much with their family when I was in Aberdeen. And so my goal is to get President Payne and maybe even Sister Payne to come on and reminisce with us a little bit too.
So they were in the zone leaders area in Aberdeen, weren't they? So I remember going for a DA there once and thinking, because they lived a little bit way out, didn't they? Was it West? I said Westbury or somewhere. What's the place called?
Yes, yeah, I remember. I don't remember the name of the place, but yes, they were a little bit outside of
slightly nicer.
Aberdeen proper.
Yeah, brilliant food. Yeah.
Well, they always made a good American meal for us homesick American boys. So. Yeah, they're great.
Cool. We'll keep up the good work. It's been great to catch up and reminisce.
Yeah, time flies when we're having fun. I can't believe it's.
Yeah, sorry. You have to edit this one.
No way, absolutely not. I'm sure everyone will eat this up. So thank you for joining us, Jack. Any closing thoughts?
No, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
Well, Doug, we'll let you know when this comes out, so that you can share it with all those that you're still in more close contact than we are, and hopefully we'll get those that are on the fence, off the fence, on the side, that we can get them to be part of it. I love that.
Sounds good to me.
All right,
thanks for your time, guys. Really good to see you. Take
love
care.
you, Doug. Have a good one. See you.
Bye. Bye.